Multiple immigration rights organizations are filing a lawsuit seeking to block the Trump administration's attempt to put an early end to temporary protected status for people from Haiti and Venezuela living in the United States. This comes after President Trump's administration rescinded the TPS extension last month that was granted under former President Joe Biden. The extension gave protection status for immigrants until February of 2026, but now that it's rescinded, Haitians must return to their country by August 3rd, Venezuelans by April 2nd.
Joining us now, Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes. All right, when you look at what has happened in the last couple of months with Trump in office, when it comes to deportation and the protection for immigrants, is some of stopping these programs that Trump had in there, is it saving the country money? Is it being used elsewhere? Or are we seeing mounting issues because of that executive order?
I think we are seeing mounting issues. The first thing is now we're becoming a extremely litigious society where this is amplifying that. You have the Trump administration that is attempting to roll things back, to trying to find ways to cut costs. And so the question that a lot of folks are asking is, do these secretaries actually have the power to do a number of things they're attempting to do via executive order, basically circumventing Congress, specifically in areas where funding has not only been approved, but has already been being dispersed. And then you're attempting to not just stop a program, but cut off the funding right in the middle. As you said, in this situation, the funding had already been approved till 2026, but we're going to cut it off and now make it 2025. That's where I think anyone that challenges these type of issues will have not just a leg to stand on, but probably 2 feet to stand on, because their funding is appropriated and given by Congress. And so it would take congressional action, not an executive order, to stop something like that. And they've alleged a number of those things in their complaint. And so I think that we're just at a really weird place as a country, trying to figure out, well, where does the power stop with Congress and begin with the president? And where does the presidential executive authority end and congressional authority take over? And I think the only people that can make that determination is the courts, and if they listen to the court's orders.
I mean, the courts have their hands full too, because it seems like the Trump administration follows some of what's already law and then kind of takes their own liberties in other hands. I mean, they do have the power to end temporary protected status, but also the conditions have to change in those countries.
Yes.
What's changed in Venezuela or Haiti for them to be able to end the temporary protected status?
I love that question, and they say that in the complaint, that one of the rationale and the reason that the administration listed for why we need to cut off, or why we are authorized to cut off this TPS status, is because finances have changed. There's no political upheaval. You're not running from political persecution. They rebut it and come back and say there have been no notable changes, not just any, but none. And so they're saying, while you're mentioning that there's these drastic changes, we're on the ground now in this country examining and looking at it, and there have been no changes. So much so, if you send those folks back, we're not talking about cutting dollars from a budget. You're talking about people may die when they go back to their country because they were fleeing persecution. So we have to actually remember what these people were doing. They weren't just coming here because they wanted to, get a better looking place. They wanted to ensure that they didn't die, that their children didn't die. That's what fleeing persecution means.
When funds are frozen, or when offices are terminated, there's this period until the dust settles, like this purgatory of where do these people go? What happens until the court issues another order? Like where do things stand? What happens to immigrants?
Well, typically, if a court doesn't make a determination, right? So let's go down that path. If the court doesn't make a determination, the Trump administration would begin the deportation process and they would go back. However, if the court interjects and puts some type of injunction and stops them from doing that, they would not be able to go back, because the court would then say you have to stop. But we, again, have to see if this administration follows it. The last thing I'll say quickly is they also talk about how you have human rights violations that are happening in South Africa. A number of those things are attached and tucked inside of this as well, where the Trump administration is saying that they will now grant free access to white South Africans because they are being persecuted in their own country. And so in this complaint, the Haitians and the Venezuelans are saying you're also using racial bias because you're allowing white citizens from other countries to come in without any issues, but people of color from other countries are now being forced to jump over additional hurdles. They've listed a number of things in their complaint, but most of them point to that.
Our Chief Legal Analyst, Khalif Rhodes, that's why we keep him on payroll. We'll have him back in our next half hour with more on what we're seeing from the Trump administration. Khalif, thank you.